I know about you is that you have ambition to be great. My job is to coach you to get all that greatness out of you.
What's good, Fin Nation? What's good? It's your boy Reason, and we are back here for yet another one. I hope everyone is out there having an absolutely fantastic start to their week. It is Monday. I'm a little bit later than normal, but that's just because I had to work some kinks out. I continue to work some kinks out with basically the new set and such, and it's still, though I've launched it, continues to be a work in process. I got a few new visual additions that'll be coming to what you're seeing currently, as well as just getting, hey man, simple things like getting uniform lighting and such consistently. So hope everyone is having a fantastic evening. We got a couple of things to go over. Last night after my stream was done, I'm actually watching my mother's dog, so I went out for a walk with the dog or whatever, and I got sent a link in regard to the Jim Rose show from last week and Mike Westhoff segment, the former special teams coordinator for Miami. He's been a special teams coordinator around the NFL. I had that. I while I was walking, I listened to it and played it, and then obviously it was already after I went live, so I want to go over that because it's deeper than what Westhoff has been saying. And if you've been paying attention, you'd see early on with OTAs, right? Very positive, blah, 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 blah. But last week and a half, the narrative's been turning, and I've heard things even privately, and I've got them on the Patreon too, right? Like, I've heard things such as, I've heard about the struggles of our offensive line, right? Obviously, Taron Armstead's not out there. But I mean, the day before everyone confirmed Connor Williams is out there, I was telling everyone it's not good with Dieter right now. And now Dieter's been relegated basically to the bench. So a lot to go over in regards to just even what Westhoff said, because it's deeper than what Westhoff said. And I really wanted to, is there cause for concern right now? Should Dolphins fans be worried? We'll talk about that a little bit. Chris Grier was on Sirius XM Radio today, said a multitude of things about a multiple different players. We'll talk about that. A good article sent over to me by the homie Irving in regards to came out with Sharp Analytics, and they came out with a new article about Tua Tagovailoa a couple days ago. We'll go over that. I showed us you guys last week how the 33rd team had the Dolphins weapons ranked as basically top tier in the NFL. Well, Barry Jackson has an article talking about all their positional rankings they came out with. We'll take a look at that quickly. Also, we were mentioned in both Football Morning in America as well as the Monday Morning Quarterback. We'll talk about that. And obviously, I want to talk about what Tyreek said. The new trailer for his new podcast came out, and Tua Tagovailoa has talked about in the trailer. I mean, let's be honest, guys. Shit, let's hope he hits just for the fact of all the clicks we'll be getting for the next 10 years if this guy hits. Holy crap. I mean, everyone uses this guy for clicks into whatever, whether positive, negative, or just promoting something new. It's kind of crazy, man, that the traffic that Tua brings, man. Imagine if he does enter that top 12 realm where I say that he needs to enter this year, basically to justify moving on to year 4, right? Like, come on. I've said this before. We're not going to move on into year 4 with a guy that either proves to be at best middle of the pack. They're just not going to do it, right? So, especially with a new coach in place, like they're not going to fire McDaniel. What they're going to say is, all right, coach, go get your guy. We've got this capital, go get the guy. And that's where, if that goes down, Will Levis QB1 for 2023, or it's been talking about that for about 6 months on this channel, that if this don't work out in year 3, that Will Levis train it's already been, I've already laid the railroad tracks. I've already put the coal in the engine, and I'm just waiting for the sign that I got to pull the horn and start driving the train. But like I said, I think Tua's going to enter the top 12. My expectations for him, he should. I mean, I expected him to take an organic third-year leap before we added all the personnel, all the talent we've added. Now that we've added that personnel and that talent, I expect an even bigger leap than what I originally had anticipated. So that's why I talk about that top 12 arm. And remember, I got him as a 17th ranked quarterback. So going to top 12 is a 5-spot leap, and you enter that upper third of the NFL, right? You enter that top third tier of the NFL, right? If you were to break it down into 3 tiers, really what? Like 10.75 would be about, 11, 12. It's the same. I mean, we're splitting hairs when you talk about 11 to 12. There's not that big of a gap. The gap is really from, on my opinion anyways, when you get outside 1 to 5, then there's obviously a gap from 5 to 6. But then when you're looking at from like 6 to 12, there's not a huge gap from 6 to 12. We start splitting hairs from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, 8 to, right? So, but there is that gap. Once, I view the top 5 quarterbacks in the elite is the top 5. When you enter the top 5, you are in the lead. I don't view the top 6 or the top 8 as being elite. If you're considered top 5 at your position, any position in the NFL, you're elite. Right? That's how I look at it. So, and remember, so if I think top 5 is elite, 5 to 10 is great, right? 10 to 15 is really good, right? And then 15 to 20 is like, okay, you're good. And then 20 to 25 is like, okay, I guess you're above average. And then 25 to 30 is your average at best. And then 30 to 32 is your glorified backup. And you're just starting because 2 teams in the NFL need a starter, basically, right? I mean, if we're really going to take a lazy approach to how you could tier things, that would be the easiest way to basically lay it out. So I don't know. We'll see. You got to play it by ear. Again, I've said this from day one, and we're going to, whether it's positive or negative, right? I talk about the underthrow, the throws in stride. It didn't matter. Right now, I'm not putting stock into anything. I take notice of things, but I don't put stock into anything. And I think everyone should take that approach. You know what I mean? Like, this isn't a time to sit around and lose your mind over like a touchdown in stride when it's the underwear Olympics. Just like it's not the same. It's not the time to lose your mind when there's an underthrow in the Olympics. I mean, look at Deshaun Watson right now. Deshaun Watson is struggling mightily at OTAs. Does that mean he's a bust? Does that mean he don't got it anymore? No, that just means it happens. It just happens. All right? Like, it is what it is. And I hate to bring that name up because I know how sensitive a lot of people are with that issue, but I'm just using that as an example, though. It happens, right? Even to the guys who are totally healthy, you put the off-field issues aside, but when they're totally healthy, everyone can agree he's in that top 5 conversation when he's going. But look at him. He's struggling mightily with a new team and a loaded offense, right? But like, it happens, right? It just happens. So, like if I was a Browns fan, I wouldn't be losing my mind. I'd be losing my mind about 23 and 24 and number of allegations coming up in this thing looking like it's going to get to 30. The off-field stuff, I'd be losing my mind off that they guaranteed him the money. The on-field stuff, I wouldn't be losing my mind on yet. So it's the same thing with Tua right now, but we're going to talk about all that stuff. Again, I got to say this every show, though. Just relax, guys. I said to EM yesterday, even when we talked on the phone, I said, man, I just can't wait till training camp until there's so many eyes out there, right? Until we don't have to listen to, some of these beat reporters, because let's be honest, some of them are negative. Some of them are clearly company men, all right, who aren't handling themselves the way they were a couple years ago, and they conduct themselves a little bit differently now, and they're purely company men. And you know what I mean? So, meaning whether, they're afraid of the Dolphins taking stuff away from them at their publication or whatever the case may be, right? It's going to be nice to have dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of eyes on the field. Like, I got a couple links that are there and that aren't part of the media that are seeing things, but I mean, even they're kind of not talking that much. It's kind of weird right now. So, it's going to be nice when we have a lot of eyes out there, right? That's what I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for everyone's eyes to be out there, and we can get, to be honest with you, I mean, there's people outside of okay, everyone knows one of my biggest issues with the media is I think, they more so have their jobs because they know where to put a period at the end of the sentence, as opposed to actually knowing the game and breaking down. Like, let's be honest with yourself. Bring any one of those local media beat writers up here, and we don't even have to put film up. And it's going to be circles ran around these guys by myself. If I really want to take the gloves off, right? If I don't want to be the respectful guy that just wants to get their thoughts on everything, and we just want to go head to head and see who's really knows what here, this wouldn't even be a freaking contest, all right? And that's why a lot of people have started coming to YouTube in general, because they're finding fans with more logical and more in-depth takes who prove, by whether it's talking football just straight out or breaking down film or whatever, that they know what they're talking about more than what you're seeing on ESPN or reading in your local paper. Because it's not just in Miami, it's everywhere, right? So, when more eyes are out there at training camp, you're right, and the pads are on, let's see what's going on, right? But we're still going to go over what Mike Westhoff said because it was interesting as hell, and we got to show every side of it, right? When you're objective, you got to show every single side. We're not just going to sit here and look at one side or the other, and it's always been like that. Like I said, with Tua, I'll show you the underthrows, just like I'll show you the throws in stride. I got nothing to hide. I break down. Listen, every single snap of Tua Tagovailoa's career, every single one of them, has been broken down on this channel. Literally, every single snap of his professional career has been broken down on this channel. And it's been done at an objective pace, whether it's just been myself, whether it's been me and Ballgame, whether it's been me, Ballgame, and Martin. We've showed you the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because listen, all 22 or nothing, the motto of this channel. You know why? Because you can't escape the all 22. It tells you everything. If you know what you're watching and you know how to break it down, it tells you everything. Everything's right there for you. So, I got nothing to hide with Tua. I've never had nothing to hide with Tua. Do I believe in Tua and his ceiling? Yes. But at the same time, we are now entering that much talked about since I entered the YouTube community in 2019. We're entering year 3. Before we even had Tua, when I told everyone, quarterbacks, you give them 3 years. We are now entering that realm. So this is the put up or shut up year for everyone involved. So, and especially with the plethora of capital we got on hold next year, listen, should be even more reason why we're cheering for Tua to hit. I don't want to have to spend any of that on a quarterback, whether trading for one or drafting one. I want to continue to build around Tua. I want him to show us I am a franchise guy. I'm worth building around. Build, keep building. Because we could add some real blue chip talent to more positions we can shore up. Now, the offensive line class is fairly weak coming out next year. I'm warning everyone already. But man, Bijan Robinson, realistic possibility in the first with one of those 2 picks if Tua hits. All right? Dude, Keely Ringo, my dude, the corner out of Georgia. You can say, bye-bye, Byron. I want that money. Good night. See ya. You can go draft Keely Ringo. We should all be rooting for Tua to hit just for that capital next year, because we ain't going to have $100 million to invest in free agency. We just ain't going to have it next year. So we need for this capital, because I want to see how Mike McDaniel and our current staff drafts. I don't want them to have to use 3 of those picks to move up in the draft and get a quarterback, or you package 3 of them and some players to go get a guy. I want to see how they use all those picks. Because it would be like, let's be honest with ourselves. It would be a very, very interesting social experiment in the sense of that's basically the same amount of picks we had in 2020 with the Flores regime. So getting to see how a second regime could use all those picks is a very interesting case study for Dolphin fans, right? To see the difference of how 2 regimes would attack it, because everyone knows why I call them 2 different regimes, even with Grier in place. I've told y'all. Grier is nothing more than facilitator. The coaches make the grocery list. He goes out and buys the groceries, and then they go and got to make it work. That's why you saw a lot of Flores involvement in a lot of our draft picks. Right? Now, you're seeing it because, guys, we weren't going to take Channing Tindall at 102. The guy they were targeting was Rachaad White. So that right there tells you my boy out of Arizona State, he was my man crush of that running back, one of my man crushes of that running back class. That's who they were targeting. And then when you heard Mike McDaniel talk about the running back that went off the board, that's who they were talking about, was Rachaad White out of Arizona State. And again, that shows you they were ready and willing to make a Mike McDaniel first pick right away. And then you probably would have taken Eric Azukama at 125 based on the talent that was still sitting on the board, because the linebacking run had kind of happened by that point. Right? Like my boy Muma went right after Tindall. So the linebacker run kind of had happened. So kind of interesting when you think about it, man. Like, people need to realize, like, Chris Grier is that's why I call him, he's the facilitator. That's what Chris Grier is. That's why you need a coach with a vision on both sides of the ball. And that doesn't necessarily mean the coach needs to have the vision on both sides of the ball. That means what happens is, if you're an offensive guru, you need to have the defensive guys in place on your personnel, on your staff, that are going to give you, okay, this is what we need. This is the defense we want to execute, scheme we want to run. These are the player profiles we're looking for to fit this, blah, 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 blah. So now that coach takes their vision, and you remember, he has to present it. I told people, right? Like, this is the whole thing. And this is how it works, right? This is your off season. This is how it works. Brian Flores, let's talk about him for a sec. What would have happened was, him and the defensive coaching staff, and because that's his specialty, they would have sat down. They would have made an off-season program. Okay, this is the players we're looking for to add. This is what we want to add to this defense. This is what we want to do next year. These are the wrinkles we want to add. They have a fairly loose idea of what they want to do as a defense. So they look for the players that fit what they're looking for in free agents, and they make a list, a profile for you to look for in free agency and in the draft. It's the same thing with the offense. Our offensive staff, Flores would have had to lean on those guys more, because he's not the offensive mind like he is the defensive mind. So he would have had to get those guys right. It's about getting those personnel guys right, so they can put the right plan in place for you to now bring to, because what happens is, he gets his offensive plan, offseason plan in place. He gets his defensive plan in place. He brings it to Ross and Grier. They sit down. He says, this is the defensive plan for the offseason. This is our offensive plan for the offseason. Blah, 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 blah. Then they move forward. Grier now has in hand, okay, I know what they're looking for player-wise, and I know what they're looking for, what they're looking to execute schematically and as a unit. I have an idea of it now. That's how that whole process works. Grier is not the type of guy that will draft guys and say, make it work. That's not his style. That's why he stuck around. That's exactly why he stuck around, because they knew he was literally just going to be a guy that facilitates. That's all. And he's in Garfinkel's pocket. Like, him and Garfinkel are, right? Like, they're tight. They're tighter than a nun's you know what. And that's why he's stuck around, is because he's never thrown his balls on the table and been like, oh, right, my way or the highway, blah, 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 right? He's easy to get along with. He's a nice guy. Tom Garfinkel has Ross's ear, and Grier is in Garfinkel's pocket, and plus they know he's just going to do what the coach wants to do. He's just going to fall in line. It's why Flores ran him a little bit because, Flores is an alpha. Grier's kind of a little bit of a beta. Let's call a spade, bro. And that's not bad. That's just what the personality is, man. Like, he's a very passive individual. You can tell, right? Like, he's very passive. So, you can just tell when you look at someone whether they're a beta or an alpha. And, Grier kind of screams beta, right? And Flores was like, boom, 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 alpha. Everyone in the room got to know I'm the alpha type shit. So, that's where that's at, man. So, that's why Grier stuck around. That's why he's played the game. Grier played the game. He didn't let the game play him. He played the game. That's how you're supposed to play the game. You don't let the game play you. You play the game. And he played it right. Kudos to him. Impressed. He outlasted them. But I'll tell you one thing. You guys better get it right because you ain't lasting another regime, Chris. So, and I do think if Tua don't hit this year, Mike McDaniel will not be fired after 1 year. And the reason why they will not fire him is because the optics of that around the league are going to be terrible. They're going to be terrible. And we already know how this worked. It's the same thing if Boyer's defense blows up in his face. If Boyer's defense blow up in his face, because we all know they were sniffing around Fangio. If Boyer's defense blows up in his face, he's going to say, hey, I kept everything intact. I didn't touch the defense. We upgraded it, if anything. It didn't work. Peace out. Now I'm going to bring in my guys. Now, I don't think that means he's going to turn us into his own defense, but he's going to circle back around to like Fangio and stuff. He's going to go and he's going to try and get guys that can work with the personnel we have. That's what I mean by that. And it's the same thing with Tua. Like I said this when I was on Color's show yesterday after late night, man. We went hours and hours or whatever. It was crazy. I didn't wake up till TD had already gone live and streamed, and I woke up. I was like, where am I right now? And anyways, so it's the same thing with Tua, right? Like, from what I understand, when McDaniel walked in and he showed when the interview process and when he got the in-person interview, he brought in, and you've heard him talk about the cut-ups and the clips he makes. What he did was he brought in a bunch of cut-ups and clips of, okay, this is the offense I want to run. And it was of guys like Matt Ryan, et cetera, Jimmy G, some Jimmy G throws, back to Jake Plummer stuff, like stuff. This is what I want to do. These are the throws I need the quarterback to make. And then he showed clips of Tua making those same throws to show to Chris Grier and everyone, hey, the stuff I want to do, Tua has already shown me he can do it. So he's already put it on film, whether it's been at Alabama or whether it's been professionally, he's already shown me he can do it. But what if Tua doesn't take the leap? Because look at, as much as McDaniel's smart, huh? McDaniel is a smart guy. As much as he has set up the defense and Boyer to be like, hey, no excuses, guys. He's kind of started to set Tua up. Now, the one caveat I will say here is the offensive line is still a major issue. I know I was hyped when Armstead and Connor Williams got signed, but now that we've settled into things here, I'm worried. I am worried. We are one injury away to Armstead or Connor Williams to being back to the exact same spot as last year. The exact same spot, except instead of Jesse Davis, we're leaning on guys who couldn't win battles in training camp. Like Robert Jones potentially, or Larnell Coleman potentially, to fill in. And here's the other thing, right? And I'm just going off history. I'm praying he's different this year, and I'm praying he stays healthy for all 17 games. But basically, Armstead averages about 14 games a year. So that tells us there's about 2 or 3 games we're probably going to be without him. You look at our depth, who's stepping in? I'm not like I'm not comfortable with the Connor Williams at center thing right now. I've heard he's a better communicator, but I've heard there's still snapping issues, right? Like Dieter, I heard communication-wise and snapping-wise has been a freaking disaster, and they're not happy with it. But man, we're splitting up what could potentially be the best left side in football to make up for the fact we didn't shore up center. Now, I know Ryan Jensen would have been a Dolphin if he would have hit, but this is a cause concern. We got no depth, and it looks like we're sticking Eichenberg in between Connor Williams and Armstead, saying, well, if we put you in between two guys like that, you should be okay, yet one of those guys is technically out of position right now. And I've always talked about this dating back to Flores since I've had this show. Coaches are arrogant. It doesn't matter who the coach is, they always have this arrogance about them that they can make things work. Whether it be a player cross-training, whether it be a player who's underachieved, they think they can get him right with their coaching. Coaches are just arrogant like that. It's something that it's a nature that comes with the position. And I really hope we don't have a staff that is so arrogant enough that they think, man, we know what we're doing so much and we've got such a track record that we can cross-train guys. Like, I'm okay with giving up some of our capital next year to go get a center. I've said this from the get-go. If you could get that center added to Connor Williams and Armstead, all we got to worry about is right tackle. And again, I'm worried about this, and I'm going to go back to this. And I said to CM, I'm going to make this public to all you guys. This is the first time I'm saying this publicly. Are they forcing Eichenberg and Jackson on our new regime? And I ask this because, go back, the receipts out there. When Tua got the nod, I felt, remember, EM even remembers this. He argued me. He didn't think he was. He thought, oh, no, Flores would make his decision. And I stuck up for Flores. I thought Tua got forced on Flores early when he wasn't ready. It didn't make sense to me that Flores was out in front of us saying, well, if it was my kid, I wouldn't start him, blah, 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 blah. Then 2 weeks later, Tua is starting. Like, in what world did the 2 weeks all of a sudden make the difference of he knew the playbook better than Fitz? He was more healthier than he was at the healthiest point he had been at. It just didn't make any sense. Clearly, someone stepped in. They saw the jersey sales. They saw the dollar signs, and they stepped in, and it probably came from Ross and was sent down the message, right? Like, Chan Gailey wasn't, this is a fact, Chan Gailey wasn't even involved in the meeting when they decided to make the switch. They didn't even involve the offensive coordinator, the guy who came here because Fitz was the starter, who was clearly already emotionally invested in the position already. So clearly Tua, that came. So why wouldn't they do the same thing with Eichenberg and Austin Jackson on the premise of we spent a top 20 pick on Austin Jackson and we spent an extra third rounder to move up and trade for Liam Eichenberg and draft him at 42. We've got capital invested in these guys. You guys are offensive line gurus. Make it work. Because I look at this and I'm like, Austin Jackson has the traits. I've said this from day one when we made Mike McDaniel. I said, this guy's going to have a chance to start because he's got the traits you need in this offense. But fundamentally and technique-wise, he's a freaking disaster. Eichenberg, his fundamentals and techniques coming over to Notre Dame, that was his selling point. We saw Jack Bo Diddley of that as a rookie. And trait-wise, he doesn't have what you want in this offense. He just doesn't. So, and this is alluding to, I've heard our offensive line has struggled so badly, okay? I've heard, obviously, the 2 days of minicamp. The first day I heard Tua was not good at all. Underthrows, overthrows, missed reads, etc. I heard on day 2, other than those 2 dimes he threw to Tyreek to end the practice, he was average pretty much for most of day 2 as well. And our offense as a whole was. All right? And I heard this before Mike Westhoff said anything. And I've alluded to this stuff on my Patreon. And so, but I've also heard the offensive line has been not good. And Terran Armstead's not out there. I've heard nothing about our running backs except Zacondre White. Zacondre White's the only name I hear. I hear he's the best at rookie minicamp, and I hear he was flashing at minicamp. But I don't hear much about Chase Edmonds. Obviously, Raheem Mostert's not out there. I've heard nothing about Sony Michel. I've heard nothing about Salvin Ahmed and Myles Gaskin. Really, offensively, the only thing that I've heard about is Tyreek Hill. I've heard they like what they've seen from Hunter Long. What else have I heard? Waddle's had good days. I've heard good things about Waddle. But, I mean, this isn't just a Tua thing. I haven't heard good things about a lot of people here. Like, the only offensive lineman I've heard good things about are Robert Hunt. And when I say I only heard good things about, like, I'm not even hearing anything about other people. Like, that's what I'm saying is, like, I'm hearing, like we're talking, like, quiet as a church mouse out here right now. So, like, I've heard Gesicki looks lean, mean. He's moving well. I've heard Gesicki looks like a beast on field. I've heard that. And that's from someone who's on the field, part of the media team there. So, I've heard a lot of things, but I haven't heard really anything about anyone on our offense other than what I've told you about Tyreek. Maybe 5 players, right? Waddle, Tyreek, Hunt, Tyreek, Waddle, Hunt, Gesicki, Hunter Long. Yeah, 5 players. And then I've heard about the good stuff when Tua does it. So 5.5. Oh, I agree 110%. 110%. I agree. That's why, see, I'm hearing things. I don't put stock in them. I take notice. Right? I put in the filing cabinet. It's not the time to overreact, man. June is not a time to overreact. Now, when the pads are on, and if we're hearing major struggles, right? Like, if you want my honest opinion, the real practices I'm honed in on, we're going to have joint practices with every team we're playing in the preseason. Those joint practices, right? Remember, the joint practices told us a lot last training camp. Those joint practices are the ones I'm really putting it. If you want, what's the reason putting the most stock in the offseason program? When we go with joint practices with the Bucs and all the other teams that we've already announced we're going to do, that's when I'll start putting some stock in this stuff. You can start putting stock into that, right? Because on the other hand, you guys got to remember, our defense knows what's coming at them too, right? Like, the offensive and defensive players have talked about this in their post-practice scrums, that, the defense has a good idea of what's coming at them too, right? Plus, our defense is freaking lights out. Let's be honest, bro. But one of the best defenses in the NFL. So we're going to get into it, but the joint practices are what we're going to see some, like the 11-11s and joint practices, boys and girls. Those are going to be telltale things for us. Because, guys, even at open practices to the public and media, they're only going to show all of us so much. You're going to see what they want us to see. You're not going to see the in-depth stuff and them really taking the gloves off. You ain't going to see that crap. That crap's going to go on when none of us are there and no eyes are there, right? That's the reality of thing. But the joint practices, you can't escape that. That's where no one can escape that. So let's get into what we'll start off with what Mike Westhoff said. Then we'll get into what Tyreek said. But let's start off with Mike Westhoff and what he said and what we're talking about here with everything. So we'll start off with Mike Westhoff, then we'll get into Tyreek. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Make sure you can hear this.
Jimmy Rollins.
The official baseball rulebook is full of all sorts of strange rules.
But the unwritten rulebook is even weirder.
We each come from different eras, and we each were taught to play the game in different ways.
In this new podcast series, we're going to break down all
the Sausage King.
In order for us to execute at a high level, we got to do things at a high level. So
I got to be hard on myself. Mike's a little different. Mike is always trying to encourage you and trying to keep you going. So for me, it's a little backwards where I'm used to myself, getting hard on myself and the coach getting hard on me too. Whereas I'm getting hard on myself and he's trying to tell me, hey, it's gonna be okay. Like we're only in May, we're only in June. There's a lot more time to grow, but it's been cool. It's been different. Like I said, I've never been around a coach like this who's just extremely positive. Growing up, my dad's always been hard on me. My high school coach has been hard on me. Coach Saban's been hard on me. And all the coaches that I've had prior, they've all been hard on me. So he's hard, but he takes another alleyway, if you will, on kind of teaching and helping.
That was Tua yesterday following the second day of mandatory mini camps. We're going to jump out right now, by the way, talk a little bit more about that and the Dolphin team on the Toyota of Hollywood hotline. Shop over 1,500 Toyotas indoors in one of America's largest showrooms at Toyota of Hollywood on 441 between Hollywood and Sheridan. Our buddy, Mike Westhoff, going to join us here for a couple minutes. Mike, good morning. Thank you very much for the time, as always.
Good morning, guys. Good seeing you yesterday.
Mike, I got to tell you, before we get into everything, and for people that don't know Mike for some reason, because we have had him on a long time, special teams coordinator for the Jets and the Miami Dolphins, seeing you over on the side, standing next to Danny and your former punter with the Saints, Thomas Morstead, but that outfit you had on, where the hell do you look real? You look real South Beachish yesterday in that flowery matching top and bottom.
I had on a pair of shorts.
Hey,
and a Hawaiian shirt. That's all.
Coach, you were looking fly. I like it, Coach. I
don't know what they call it. You was looking sweet.
Yeah.
That's what I thought, Mike.
That's right.
That's old school.
I'm looking sweet to you, brother.
Well, you kind of know how things are at home right now. All of a sudden, my wife's always asleep before I get to bed. It's not good. Never good, Mike. Hey, Mike, so we had a chance to talk to you after you were down on the field bonding with all the big timers. It came up, spent some time. It was great talking to you yesterday. Hey, I'm curious about your take on. We've been talking about this. The players have talked about this style. Mike McDaniel's completely this new style of young, super positive all the time, and really relates to every player. It's kind of new. Everybody I talk to is like, yeah, this first time we've seen this or been around it. You're an old school guy because I know who you've been with, and you've been with a whole bunch of old school dudes. What are your thoughts?
Okay, it's really simple for me. You can talk all you want about being positive and all the type of thing. What I always believed in is being reactionary. I wanted to react to what I saw. And you can be hard and everything, but I just wanted to be honest and reactionary. When things were good, I love being complimentary. And when things are on time and sharp and they're correct, yes, then you exemplify that. But when they're not, you just tell it like it is. And yesterday, it was not. That offensive practice, I've been around a lot of offensive practices in my career. You go back and you think I had 32 years. Don't forget, I was with most of my career with some pretty good quarterbacks. Dan Marino, Vinny Testaverde, and, of course, Drew Brees. Those guys are pretty good. They can play the game. And yesterday was just a terrible example of offensive football. So you can be nice, you can be positive and say everything you want, but at the same time, I just want to react to what I saw. And I saw where I would have shut the music off and started the whole doggone thing over. That's what I would have done.
Wow.
That's just the way I feel because of the fact that it just wasn't – the little things were so out of whack, that not lining up properly, not breaking the huddle and getting up sharp. I'm trying to – how many passes were completed downfield? Joe, you can count them on one hand. I mean, come on. This is a National Football League. Let's go.
Okay, let's stop right there for a sec. And I brought this up to EM, and I've said to them, okay, guys, let's look at this for a sec here, okay, guys? Let's break this down for a sec. I said, is this a cause for concern to EM? And he said, what? And I said, is it a cause for concern that Tua clearly struggled on the 2 days of minicamp? Teddy Bridgewater has been struggling all OTAs, not just minicamp. And the only positive things we've heard about the quarterback is Skylar Thompson has the liveliest arm out of the whole group. But you got to think about this as well. Skylar Thompson having the liveliest arm of the whole group. Skylar Thompson's working with the third string guys. He's getting third string work, which isn't very much, especially when you get into the 11-11 work. Third string guy ain't getting much of the 11-11 stuff, okay? If any. So very small sample size. They said, okay, you know, Skylar's arm looks lively. But the guys who are getting the majority of the reps, a guy going into year 3, and then a guy like Bridgewater, who's been around the league, he's been in multiple offenses, they're struggling most. The offensive line is clearly struggling. I've been reporting that on the Patreon as well. The offensive line has been struggling. We've heard nothing about the running game. Guys, we haven't heard about any running back breaking off a big chunk run. They talk about that stuff in training camp and minicamp. I know we haven't seen it this offseason, but they talk about that stuff. When big runs and big chunks are gained. Oh, what's going on, Rhino? What's up? Shout out to the homie Rhino. $5 donation. Go Fins. Appreciate you, homie. Been a minute. Big runs get talked about. We haven't heard about big runs. The only stuff we've heard about is coming from the receivers. Tyreek and Waddle. Wilkins has been dominant against our offensive line, and there's no pads on again, so it don't matter. But we've heard, it seems everyone seems to be behind the 8 ball with the offense. And again, this is the 3rd year intact of the defense we're dealing with. This is a defense, personnel on defense. They know each other. They know the defense in and out. The staff is pretty much the same. It's been upgraded, if you really want to think about it, with the additions of Madison and Surtain. So they're gravy. The defense is gravy. They're good. But the cause for concern here, what I take from Westhoff, is I don't like hearing there's a social club vibe. Listen, I'm down for positive energy, down for positive reinforcement, I'm down for good vibes, enjoying your time there, cool like that. But when we got to get to work, let's put our serious pants on and let's get to work. But there's clearly struggling going on. Like, listen to this. None of us expected to hear the things we've heard about Bridgewater. None of us expected to hear the stuff we've heard about Bridgewater. I expected Bridgewater to have no issue whatsoever, and I'm hearing Bridgewater struggling. See, this is why I say, don't put stock, but take notice. So what I'm telling you right now, just take notice of. That's all. And what Mike Westhoff's saying, don't put a ton of stock into it, but take notice of it. So if you start seeing or hearing the same stuff he's saying in training camp, you took notice of it. And now, you know, when we get, I'm telling you, because whether positive or negative things doesn't matter. Positive or negative. You take stock of them early. You take notice of them early on. So when you hear when the pads are on or during preseason with the joint practices, I said, those are the real things we need to be putting stock into, the joint practices. If you start hearing things or if you're at the joint practice and you see things you heard about early on, right? Anyways, let's continue.
I see some talent, overall talent on that field that was pretty good to me. I think if you had an NFL race, the Miami Dolphins would win the race. That might be the fastest team in the league. They can run. And the defense looked pretty sharp. They got a good punter, a great punter, a good kicker. I see a defense that looks pretty doggone good. On offense, they've got some receivers that a lot of teams would trade for. But you got to get that guy that's pushing the button now. He's got to do the job. And what I saw yesterday, I was very disappointed.
So let me ask you though, Mike. They're putting in this new offense, as you know, and so you got to give that time, or you still think they should be better? Or think there should be more teaching? Just to follow up on that, when you're putting in something brand new, including this man-to-man blocking, the zone blocking in and out style.
Yeah, it's a good point, and it takes a little time. But at the same time, there's a lot of meeting time, there's walkthroughs. And when you practice, don't practice something that you don't have an opportunity to execute. I mean, come on, this is the National Football League. These guys are good, and they've been great college programs. When you come out after you walk through it, you practice it, it's got to look pretty sharp. And you keep practicing that. You don't have to have, and we're not talking about having an opening day game plan yesterday. Of course not.
Right.
That's not what it has to be. But what it should have been in a position that it could have been much more efficient from what I've seen. And I've been on, a lot of practice, 32 years. I've seen a lot of practices. I be honest with you, on offense, that's what I was really concentrating. I wanted to see what they were doing with the quarterback, how he was progressing. And I'll just be real honest, guys. I didn't see it. I really didn't. And you can say what you want. Oh, well, we're just learning it. We're just putting it in. And okay. Okay. Yeah, sure. I'm not expecting to be, getting ready to open the season. I'm expecting to be in a mini camp offense. That's all I want to see.
Mike,
See, so he's sitting there and he's talking about basically he's not seeing an offense up to snuff at what he expected to be early on. Now, see, the thing is when we talk about walk, and this is an issue too, you got a lot of guys, kind of what Joe Rose said there, got a lot of guys that are, here's the thing. You got to have the traits, the athleticism, and you got to have the IQ to make the change from, because everyone was drafted to be a power. Basically, we drafted these guys to make a power gap offensive line. Okay. And now that they got to make this switch, it is drastic, but with proper coaching and with the proper IQ, he is right. You should see, again, we all weren't there. We don't know how big of a disaster this was that he's talking about, but by the sounds of it, it's not very good. And he, just by his estimation, we're behind the curve. It sounded like it was real relaxed, lackadaisical. You know what I mean? And hey, should we be concerned? Should we be worried? No, it's June. There's no pads on. Should we take notice? Yes. Take notice of what Mike Westhoff is seeing, because when you guys go out to training camp and get eyes on them, if you see the stuff that Westhoff is talking about, then that's when we should start being concerned. If we're seeing this stuff in August, yes, put your concern caps on. I am right there with you. Right? So it's obviously not a glowing review. And really, if you've been listening to Omar Kelly and Elaine Papar and guys like that, they haven't been glowing. I've said this before. The last week and a half, especially since minicamp week, the narrative kind of changed a little bit. Early on, people was a little bit hopeful and they were very positive. The last week and a half, the people who have been at camp, who have reported being at camp, haven't been as positive as they were early on. So, hey, we're going to see how it works out. We're going to see when training camp ramps up where this offense is really at. And there's just no way they're going to be able to escape it. So we're going to, especially those joint practices. Those joint practices are going to talk a little.
Is there a reason for that not being efficient? Yeah. I don't understand the reason.
All right, so I standing next to you, and you hadn't left yet as the head coach was talking. You're just getting ready to leave, and he was pretty positive right off the bat. The message was Tua's getting better and better, and the team really he's got to do that, right? He's got to build this guy up because that's going to be his confidence guy. You don't have a problem with that, though.
No, of course not. Okay. No. I think there's no. You want to be. You're not throwing. I don't want to throw somebody under the bus. I absolutely not. That's not where I'm talking about at all. I just want to react to what I saw, and I don't care if it was Dan Marino out there. It wasn't a good day. That's just it. That's not going to be Dan. That didn't look like him, by the way.
No, we got a large fan base would tell you they have. That's a whole different. So
what I was told about I was told, I reported on Patreon, day one was not good, overthrows, underthrows, misreads, etc. Day two, I was told he was average at best, quote unquote, average at best until those two catches by Tyreek happened. That's what I was told about Tua on his 2 days of minicamp. That's what I was told.
Different deal. Yeah.
But at the
So
same time,
that's
you
why
get
I'm
my
not shocked
point.
or anything.
I mean, come on. It's just that's all there is to it. I'm not going to go up there and destroy the guy and be yelling and screaming what I didn't see. No, that's not what you have to do. That's not it at all. It's just the fact of being real and saying, this is, we're headed in this direction. There's some bumps. We weren't even headed. We weren't close to where we want to be today.
Mike, I want to take you a step further because I said to you, Mike, you're old school. I told you yesterday, and I said, when you say this stuff, people are going to go, look at that. An old coach is just not ready to change with the times of the way today's society is, just like today's football. It needs more positive reinforcement. What do you say to that, Mike?
That's a good question. It's a good question. I think by being real, you're not being unpositive, and you're not doing that. I don't think by being a little bit hard or harsh that I'm not, keeping up with the millennials that I want to. I just want to do it right. I just want to do it right.
Yeah.
That's all. It's not that hard to me. And it's not like I coached 100 years ago. Come on, I was the Saints a couple years ago knocking on the door at the Super Bowl. So I have a pretty good feel for how things are supposed to be done. And that's just the way I believe you have to do it. And it was how you handle it. Do I want to be yelling and screaming at the guy? No, of course not. That's not it. If I had too many days in a row, that might happen. But
you put me out at R4, you're going to be doing some yelling. I can tell you.
All right, now they start getting into like fishing and stuff like that. There's really not much more that gets said there. But listen, I don't have a problem with what Westhoff's saying here. It goes back to this, like, listen, or it's not like I think he doesn't know what he's talking about, or let me fix this for a sec. Give me a sec here. Or it's not like I think he doesn't know what he's talking about or something to that effect. That's not the case at all, man. Like, it's just I'm not overreacting to something in beginning of June yet. When the pads come on, if we're seeing this in the preseason, we're seeing this in the joint practices, we're seeing this in the preseason games, let's be worried, right? But right now, we're good. I'm not stressing over it. You got a defense that's got a 3-year head start on this offense. You got a new coach, all these new installs. I mean, listen, you can do walkthroughs and you can do meetings till you're blue in the face. But when you actually got to get out there and there's other people on the side of you, even when the pads aren't on, and you just got to let it roll. And now, especially when you're used, and I'm talking about the offensive line right now that's been struggling too. When you've been used to doing something for 2 years one way, and now you got to do it in a totally different system, and you got to execute things in a totally different way, there's going to be growing pains. It's going to happen. So let's see when the pads get on. If we're hearing stuff when these pads get on, go from taking notice to start putting stock into that stuff, man. But right now, whether it's good, whether it's bad, take notice of it. Don't lose your minds over it and overhype either side of it. We got no pads on and we're literally in June, right? So it is what it is, man. Let's get into what Tyreek had to say now. And this is what Tyreek said. This is the trailer for, so I'm promoting him too. Check in the mail. This is the preview clip for his new podcast, and this is what he said.
I went for 150 with Matt Moore as my quarterback. I love you, Matt Moore. Versus the Minnesota Vikings. If you don't remember that game, 150 and 1 touchdown with Matt Moore as my quarterback. So Tua.
So what you trying to say?
Tua T is 10 Matt Moores. I love Matt Moore, but Tua T is 10 Matt Moores. Let's get technical right now, man.
No lie.
So, I mean, let's play that one more time because it's
that I went for 150 with Matt Moore as my quarterback. I love you, Matt Moore. Versus the Minnesota Vikings. If you don't remember that game, 150 and 1 touchdown with Matt Moore as my quarterback. So Tua.
So what you trying to say?
Tua T is 10 Matt Moores. I love Matt Moore, but Tua T is 10 Matt Moores.
I mean, see, and I know, especially those fans who were out on Tannehill and they were calling for Matt Moore to take his job and stuff like that. I want to know how those people feel right now when this guy says Tua is 10 Matt Moores. But I honestly think Tyreek truly believes in Tua and Tua's skill set. I really honestly think this isn't trying to boost his confidence or anything like that. I honestly believe that Tyreek believes what he's saying. And, again, this is why I say, you can say what you want about your expectations of him as a number 5 overall pick, but Tua's at least shown the NFL and everyone he's a competent NFL starter. Right? And because Matt Moore was a damn fine backup and he was a competent starter fill-in for 2 or 3 games. And for him to say he's 10 Matt Moores, you see, that's his boy. I love you, Matt Moore. Right? So we really think Tyreek Hill was out here throwing one of his friends under the bus just to build his quarterback's confidence? No, he's basically telling you, if I can go 150 and 1 touchdown in a game with Matt Moore, think about what I can do with Tua Tagovailoa. That's exactly what he's saying to everyone. And we don't even have to hear the question because that was a trailer. And we know the trailer, the question is going to be something along the line, do you think Tua is going to hold you back this year as a receiver? We know it's going to be something along those lines, and that's why he said what he said. But that's pretty high praise, man. And if you're watching this now, check back in the morning because I will be changing the thumbnail. I'm just waiting on my guy to get done his day job, and I'm going to be changing the thumbnail. And it's going to be pretty funny. You guys are going to enjoy that thumbnail. So listen, again, Tyreek needs that C on his chest. That guy has been the captain of this offense since he signed that contract. I have never seen a guy sign that kind of contract and be so bought in. Like, Tyreek Hill might be my favorite player on the Dolphins right now. I'm just so bought in with how much of a team player he is. This is so refreshing. Devontae Parker wasn't like this. Brandon Marshall wasn't like this. Mike Wallace wasn't like this. I got to go back to like OJ McDuffie to find a guy like this. Or Chris Chambers. To find a guy we had like that was talented, that was like this. Like, I'm so blown away. I am honestly, and not just for Tua, and Tua has nothing to do with this. Well, I mean, you'd be passing the football, but in terms of what I want, has nothing to do with this. I am rooting for Tyreek Hill to have a crazy season this year. And not even just for Tua to shut up haters or anything like that. No, because Tyreek deserves it with how much he's bought in to the Miami Dolphins since he signed that contract. Like, because I remember, you guys remember a couple years ago where he didn't want to restructure with KC? Remember he didn't want to restructure his money with KC a couple years ago? He was reluctant. He said, "Nah, man, what you signed, you're going to pay me?" And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, he doesn't seem like..." And then he comes here and he's like this. I'm like, this guy is the definition of a team player. Like, he might be my favorite player on the team, him and Waddle. Waddle and Holland will always have such a special place in my heart because my draft evaluations were so dead on about them. They'll always have a special place in my heart. Austin Jackson will have a special place in my heart because my draft evaluation was dead on for him. It just wasn't the positive draft evaluation. Oh my God. Anyways, I'm just, Tyreek Hill. Absolutely love what I'm seeing from him. Put the C on that man's chest. Seriously. Unbelievable stuff. Huge fan. That guy has made a huge fan out of me in such a short time. So Chris Grier, he was on Sirius XM Radio with Alex Marvez and Charles Davis today. And the homie Barry Jackson wrote about it. He said Dolphins general manager Chris Grier can only visualize what Tyreek Hill will look like streaking down the field in a Dolphins uniform in an actual game. But he already knows this. His practice performance has been scintillating. Oh, I love the word choice, Barry. Attaboy. He does something on the field every day that has you shaking your head, I imagine what he meant there. Grier told Sirius XM Radio's Alex Marvez and Charles Davis, even before Hill caught 2 long passes and a short touchdown throw from Tua Tagovailoa on the final day of last week's 2-day mandatory minicamp. Everyone knows his speed and what he does, a phenomenal athlete. Multiple people in Kansas City told me, just wait until you watch him in practice and the things he does. That's what gets you excited. His love and passion for how he plays, it's really impressive watching him work. That has been a catalyst. Jalen Waddle already has been a very good practice player for us, and Cedric Wilson too. The whole group being around Hill's energy, work ethic has elevated the expectations. It seeps through all facets of the team. Love hearing that. Like Tyreek is just such good stuff. Grier addressed other issues on Tagovailoa. The one thing is his confidence level. Again, I go back to Jalen Phillips. A lot of people overlook Jalen Phillips and his media availability when he talks about his confidence level was shot as a rookie from our coaching staff to the point where he had to get a confidence therapist, right? So this isn't just a Tua thing with confidence. Multiple people have had their confidence. Look at Solomon Kinley. The guy's become a disaster when he looked like before that ankle injury in year 1, he was going to be a future Pro Bowl guard. He got put in the doghouse, stopped caring about his weight, and I've heard he still looks huge. So I don't know the people saying he lost a bunch of weight. I've heard he still looks massive. And he still can't move in open space, which ain't going to help him. On Tagovailoa, the one thing is his confidence level. He played well for us in the second half of the season. With the players we've added around him, it has Mike McDaniel really excited. Teddy Bridgewater has been a great influence as well. The two of them, the relationship with Mike and Frank Smith, the whole offensive side of the ball has been fun to watch. Even defensive guys said they couldn't believe the transformation on offense and how they're doing. On McDaniel, Mike was under the radar in San Fran. It's so impressive listening to him and his thought process on things. On his communication between the head coach and the rest of the organization, which Grier never discussed during Flores' tenure, but Stephen Ross suggested was a problem during Flores' tenure. We don't always agree, but we talk through things and always do what's best for the Dolphins, Grier said. Our coaching staff, the personnel department, has been a smooth transition. The communication throughout the building with everyone has been great. Mike is a really good football mind, and he is who he is, and that's what I love about him. On rookie linebacker Channing Tindall, he has speed, explosiveness, and has a trajectory and an upside where he could hit another level. Tremendous person, another fast guy with Jerome Baker and Duke Riley, and he's a tremendous special teams player as well. We love the speed and toughness we're adding with them. Yeah, but that's another guy. Tindall's apparently been invisible in minicamp. Now, does that mean he's a bust? But Tindall's been invisible from the people that I've talked to. On rookie receiver Eric Azukama, adding a little more size at the wide receiver spot was important. He's a blocker as well. Another guy who's a tough runner, tough to bring down, fights for yards. Just the attitude he plays with is something we were drawn to. On rookie quarterback Skylar Thompson. Skylar is someone our scouts and coaches homed in on. A guy that's very smart, a gamer, very mature. So a lot of strict PR answers, right? Like basically scouting report answers on Tindall and Eric Azukama. But when he talks about the communication, you know what I mean? He admits, he would have never said, oh, me and Flores don't always agree. But, he's out here saying, hey, we don't always agree, but we talk things through and we do what's best for the team. There's one thing, that's probably easier, Mike McDaniel's open door policy, which I'm sure is in place. It's probably a lot easier to walk in that door than it was to walk in Flores' door, just with how he presented himself, right? So, and again, we go back to the confidence level. That's a thing that multiple guys have to do. I mean, even Jalen Phillips. Everyday process. With any players, right? Like, any position, especially on offensive line and such, where do you think Eichenberg's confidence is at as an offensive lineman after last year? Austin Jackson's confidence heading into year 3, it has to be pretty much in the gutter too. So there's a lot of players on this team where they need good confidence boosts and reinforcements. But you can boost your confidence and reinforce it all you want. At the end of the day, this is a results-driven business, and we're going to need to see that confidence boost translate into some results for the Miami Dolphins. Sharp Football Analysis, they put out a really interesting article about Tua. It's called Let's Talk About Tua, Arm Strength, Deep Throws, and 2022 Expectations. The Tua Tagovailoa discourse alone could power us through the NFL offseason. We've already filled the bingo card for prime offseason overreaction topics between Twitter clips, practice reports, and teammate quotes. Tagovailoa is such an interesting and polarizing topic of discussion because we're all still searching for the answer to the most basic question: is he good at football? I mean, that's another way of asking what I keep telling all of you guys, right? It's why he's going to start over Bridgewater. We don't have a firm grasp on what Tua's ceiling as an NFL starter is yet, right? There's so much more unknowns. We're entering year 3 of Tagovailoa in Miami, and we don't quite have a definitive answer. His minus 0.04 EPA per dropback through year 2 puts him in a range around Trevor Siemian, Daniel Jones, and Jared Goff. And by no stretch of the imagination is that good company. And just so remember, everyone, EPA, we've talked about this multiple times on the show, expected points added, which is basically a measure of how well a team performs relative to the expectation, right? So that's what EPA means, all right? So we've talked about EPA tons of times on the channel. I've gone into more depth. I'm not going to do it every time EPA comes up. Anyways, that's obviously not great company, especially when his draft mates Joe Burrow 0.07 and Justin Herbert 0.14 have been to a Super Bowl and might be the 1B when ranking the league's quarterbacks respectively. If a quarterback is going to break out, we typically see some sign of it by year 2. While Tagovailoa's sophomore season had a bump in efficiency, we didn't exactly get the signs of an impending top-tier quarterback. The new offense under coach Mike McDaniel and an influx of speed along with the cost of acquiring it, there are questions around the ceiling of a Tagovailoa-led offense. Much of the concern and the current conversation stems from Tagovailoa's arm strength or lack thereof. Only Daniel Jones threw deep on a lower rate of pass attempts than Tagovailoa last season at 7.5%. Over the past 2 years, Tagovailoa ranks 31st in the rate of deep throws among 37 qualified quarterbacks. But not going deep often doesn't mean the quarterback can't do it, which is what I've told you guys. It's about consistently doing things. It's not about whether Tua can't do things in the NFL. Last season, Tagovailoa completed half of his deep passes, tops among qualified quarterbacks, led the league in EPA per attempt on throws of 20 or more air yards at 1.04. So his overall was minus 0.04, but on deep throws, he was 1.04, right? In terms of EPA. And it was 15th in total EPA on those throws per True Media. Those attempts aren't sustained. Those numbers aren't sustainable should the rate of passes increase, obviously, right? But they show at least a baseline of success that can be built on should the offense open up. Rarely was the deep were the deep passes wide open gimmies. I would love to see my face on that. The throws that were made were highlighted anticipation and accuracy to make them successful. Below was a deep throw to Jalen Waddle in a Week 17 game against the Tennessee Titans. And I'll play this clip because it is the All-22, and it's not going to be a problem for us to see it, right? So here's the clip. All right, so we go back and play that one more time. I'm not even watching. Okay, all right. Gonna go in. Wow, it's like a rounded off post route. And yeah, because he's gonna go inside. He's gonna split the defenders there and then post out. And it's a post route. And like that's a throw Tua wasn't making in year 1. right? This post throw, he's not making that in year one. And steps up in the pocket, fairly clean pocket. He makes a throw. It's a good throw. It's a nice completion. All day. One more time. Boom. Post route. Splits the defenders. Good. Because what happens here basically is you create conflict by sending him on the split, right? Like you see the linebacker, right? He broke towards the sideline on that out route that's about to break here. And you've got the other defender here breaking out towards that. So you've bitten basically two defenders with that out route because look at how much space is up the sideline. So Waddle is now basically put in a one-on-one situation with that safety. Safety gives him outside the numbers and lines up to him, makes a throw. Good read, good throw, good play, nice play on which was a pretty much one of Tua's poorest days professionally. Good throw. The Dolphins also love them some slot flip fades, which took advantage of Tagovailoa's strengths with anticipation and accuracy to push the ball down the field. And here we go. All day right there. Oh, the slot. There's your fade off. Boom. Easy completion. Same again. Loved it. They loved it. And they did love the slot fades. Mike McDaniel went on an extended answer on Thursday's OTA that went over why hitting a certain threshold is important for judging a quarterback's arm and how it'll play. And that's where he talked about not 85 yards not being practical, right? And that whole thing, we went over that whole press conference, right? I'll play the clip for you guys so you have a refresher here.
Yards when in what we call one hitch timing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about, you have to have a prerequisite arm strength to be able to throw it 60, in my opinion. And then if you're not going to be able to anticipate and you have to see something happen before you do it, you probably need to throw 70.
Yeah.
Because you have to wait to see it, and then the receiver gets down further. Hopefully you have the protection. The way we've always operated since 2005 when I got in the league is if the quarterback can see the defense and is accurate, then you just see if he can throw it 60 yards. I think he might have had a 55-yarder.
This basically goes off what I've tried to tell everyone. Listen, the thing with Herbert and guys like Jacob Eason even coming out of that class is they can afford to be late on reads. All right? They can afford to be late on reads because they have bigger arms, right? That's the one thing Tua will never have. He can't afford to be late on reads. That's why anticipation and reading a defense on all three levels is so vital to Tua's success in the NFL. Because everything about Tua is all about timing and anticipation. That's how he's going to complete the 60-yard pass. That's how he's going to complete the 65-yard pass. It's going to have to be timing and anticipation and knowing when he needs to throw the ball and where to put it. It goes back to what I always said about Alabama, right? What did I always say about Alabama? He never got enough credit for how he could throw the same route to the same spot, but he could change his timing up as opposed to whether he's going to be throwing to Henry Ruggs or Devontae Smith. Right? His timing at one point was so immaculate. And his anticipation of that timing too. And that's basically what he needs to make up for not having the arm that Herbert has or a Jacob Eason has or Josh Allen has, someone like that. Part of that could certainly be a head coach covering for a quarterback who doesn't have the strongest arm. But the main point holds. Having an absolute rocket is a great tool to have, and it has allowed players like Herbert, Josh Allen, and Patrick Holmes to have a wider margin for error while developing. But it's not necessarily to have a cannon to win deep. Joe Burrow also doesn't have the strongest arm and was a terrible deep passer as a rookie. But with the addition of Jamar Chase and better anticipation and plus processing, Burrow became one of the more effective deep passes in the league last season. His .73 EPA per attempt on deep passes ranked second. Miami, for better or worse, used Tagovailoa's accuracy to serve the passing offense in a different way. As frustrating and taxing as the 2021 Dolphins offense was to watch, it worked because the quarterback was able to put the ball where it needed to go. Per Sports Info Solutions, Tagovailoa ranked 8th in on-target rate among 42 quarterbacks with at least 100 pass attempts in 2021. With so many passes thrown quickly and near the line of scrimmage, Tagovailoa didn't have any margin for error with these throws. They needed to be pinpoint or they would fall incomplete. 19.3% of Tagovailoa pass attempts were into a tight window on 1 or fewer yards of separation per NFL Next Gen Stats, the highest rate in the league. Those tight window throws are going to go away in a McDaniel offense that has been all about creating space. That now is going to be where Tagovailoa's next step came from. Will the timing, anticipation, and accuracy translate to more open offense all over the field? There's also part of the conversation that the Dolphins won't necessarily need Tagovailoa to be great or a high-volume deep thrower, since McDaniel just came from coordinating a very successful offense with a quarterback who couldn't throw deep and barely threw outside the numbers. And what you hear right now is Tagovailoa and Jimmy Garoppolo haven't been significantly different in many peripheral statistics, though the biggest difference is the advantage Garoppolo had in EPA and yards per attempt. That efficiency boost can be attributed to the offensive structure that creates more space and allows receivers to do more after the catch. And look at, you look at here, right? The blue is all incomplete. The orange are interceptions, the reds are all complete, and the yellows are all touchdowns. And this is Tagovailoa and Jimmy G's passing chart from last year. Right? Tua got a lot more stuff outside the numbers and a lot more stuff beyond the 20 spread out than Jimmy does. Jimmy's stuff is really condensed to this line of the scrimmage in the middle of the field, whereas Tua's middle of the field is, the intermediate level over the middle. It's much more spaced out than what Jimmy's is. So, the EPA versus dropback. Jimmy was 0.11. Tua was minus 0.04. The dropbacks were 750 to 628. The completion percentage was 66.2 to 68%. The average depth of target Tua's was deeper at 7.23 to 7.19. The yards per attempt was 6.59 by Tua to 8.44. The attempt behind the line of scrimmage, 20.7 by Jimmy G, 19.6 by Tua. The short percentage was 52.9% to 50.9%. The interception ratio, the intermediate ratio was 18.1% to 20.1%. And the deep was 9% to 8.3%. There's also a pretty significant difference in the effectiveness when the quarterbacks have thrown deep. Last season, Garoppolo was 30th in EPA per attempt on passes of 20 or more air yards and was one of 3 qualified quarterbacks to have negative EPA on those throws. Yet, Garoppolo still finished the season 7th overall in EPA per dropback. Tagovailoa will be afforded some of those easy buttons, which will accentuate what he's already proven he can do well in an offense. There's also a possibility that he can add a little more with the effectiveness he's shown with throwing deep. But the point stands that he doesn't have to be the league's best statistical passer to have success. Now, will the Dolphins be disappointed if Tagovailoa, a former 5th overall pick, maxes out as a slightly better Jimmy G? That's certainly a question that will need to be answered as the decision about the second contract and the cost of it gets closer. Tagovailoa might never become a top-tier quarterback. How close he gets to that will all likely depend on his pre- and post-snap processing more than his arm strength, which is exactly what I've told you guys. His pre-snap reads need to be better, and he needs to be more consistent at reading the defense at all three levels post-snap. There you go. But we also haven't seen a quarterback that consistently derails a passing offense. If you're going to judge Tagovailoa's success against Justin Herbert, then yeah, it's not going to look great. If you're going to judge Tagovailoa on if he can manage to not derail an open offense with a stacked group of playmakers, maybe you're setting the bar a bit low. But it feels like that's where the current offseason discourse has placed him. The reality is Tagovailoa will probably finish the 2022 season somewhere between those two levels of play. And while that might not be the most exciting option, it could be enough to make the Dolphins a little bit more exciting than they were before. So he thinks basically, Tagovailoa has proven he won't be the guy to derail an offense. So you're setting the bar low if you're saying, well, as long as he just doesn't derail the offense, no, your bar should be higher, is what he's saying. Right? So, hey, it is what it is. Tua, this is the year we find out, is he the guy? Is he not? Personally, to me, I've told you guys, you've got to enter the realm of top 12 in the league. Quick notes from Barry Jackson here. So, because we went, and I wanted to bring this up because we went over some of them. So, the 33rd team in NFL Think Tank graded the Dolphins by position last week. Here's how Miami fared on offense with an excerpt of the comments offered. B- at quarterback. While Tagovailoa has not been bad, his play has not been up to par for a team looking to contend. B- at running back. This position group is very reminiscent of a classic Shanahan system backfield with no true number one back, but a handful of ball carriers that can be difference makers. A at receiver, this group has star power and a lot of speed weapons. B plus at tight end, even beyond Mike Gesicki's receiving skills. Between Durham, Smythe, Adam Shaheen, and Hunter Long, Miami has players that can block and catch, as McDaniel can run as many 2 tight end sets as he would like. Here's how Miami graded out defensively. B for defensive linemen and edge players. While there is talent, this is a top-heavy group, but the grade can easily improve, given a big year from Jalen Phillips and Emmanuel Ogbah. I don't know about that. I mean, Zach Seiler is probably the most underrated defensive player in the NFL. I mean, Christian Wilkins is coming into his own right before everyone's eyes. Melvin Ingram, AVG is underrated as hell. Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Phillips. I mean, Adam Butler as a depth piece. Our front is pretty freaking stout. I don't know what they're talking about. C- for linebackers, I'll agree here. The group is a clear weak point on the team. While Jerome Baker is good, he is not enough of a superstar to make up for the deficiencies in this group. Man, he's one of the problems with the group is we can't find a legit Mike. So he's a will, bro. He's an off-ball blitzing linebacker. He's a will. A for cornerbacks at the top, there might be not a better cornerback duo in football than Howard and Brian Jones. I agree. They're top 5 duo in football. B for safeties. Javon Holland's coming off a very, very good rookie season and is becoming one of the better safeties in the entire league. Brandon Jones and Eric Rowe will have to compete for the other spot, but both are likely not high-level starting caliber players. But I think Brandon Jones, he's impressed me more than he did at Texas. I think Brandon Jones can be I talked about earlier, elite, great, really good, etc. I think Brandon Jones can be really good. I think he can be a top 15 safety in the NFL. He's showing it. So I don't know what they're talking about. I mean, he's clearly him and Javon Holland are the best blitzing safeties in the NFL. So I don't know, man. And don't sleep on Verone McKinley. He's about to roll through this year, and he's going to pop off. Don't you worry, man. People sleeping on homie Verone McKinley. People sleeping hard. Don't sleep on Verone. Continuing on, the Dolphins in Football Morning in America. I think you probably saw and this is from Peter King. I think you probably saw Tua Tagovailoa defend his arm strength the other day, and you probably saw the Dolphins post a tweet with Tua throwing a deep ball to Tyreek. Cool. None of it matters until the real game starts and we see the game plans new coach Mike McDaniel events for an offense that includes 2 legitimate deep threats, Hill and Jalen Waddle. See? None of it matters. The positive and the negative, none of it matters till the pads come on and the bullets start flying. And that's why I had to show you. Like, listen, obviously you didn't take the most positive spin. But he's right. None of it matters until we see this stuff in action. The joint practices are when we really got to start paying attention. The joint practices are going to tell us a ton. So none of it matters right now. And finally, we made the Monday morning quarterback as well. And this is what was said here. I'm excited to see what Tagovailoa can do with Tyreek and Jalen Waddle at his disposal. And I have some advice for him last week I feel very qualified to give. Worrying about what people are saying on Twitter isn't very productive. So both the Monday morning quarterback and Football Morning in America decided that, hey, they needed to chime in and let Tua know paying attention to Twitter ain't going to get us anywhere. But you know what? Look at this. Everyone talks about him and says their negative stuff about him. But the moment he comes out and calls people out for it, they cover it again too. So I don't get it, man. The guy is clearly nothing but clicks for these people, man. But listen, I'm, with everything going on at practice and minicamp lately and practice and OTAs, everyone's, there's some people that are panicking. There's some people that just want to avoid everything and don't want to talk about anything. And just listen, I'm going to cover everything, every side, whether it's positive or negative. I'm going to give you guys the news and I'm going to tell you what I know, what I've heard, and what's going on. But at the end of the day, right now, all the stuff, just take notice of it. Unless it's like drastic news that you can put stock in, just take notice. Pull out your notepad, jot it down, circle it, whatever you got to do. Highlight it, whatever you got to do. But right now, I'm not worried yet. We got no cause for it to be worried. Don't worry. Be happy. We got no cause for concern yet. Should Dolphin fans be worried or concerned about the offense? No. They should just be taking notice, right? I said it at the top of the show, and I said it just a few minutes ago. The joint practices against the teams we'll be playing in the preseason and the preseason games, we're going to start to get some real answers. And because even when you guys get out there at training camp, you guys are going to be seeing a lot of the stuff they want you to see, right? It's, if we could have flies on the wall or cameras at the stuff that isn't open to public, right? It's why Crossan deleted his Instagram stuff. It's why Solomon Kinley a couple days before posted some stuff and he deleted it, because that's the stuff they don't want us seeing, right? That's where you're going to see the condensed sets, et cetera, right? Like, let's wait and see how this plays out. Let's not overly stress about stuff in May and June. Like, let's chill. And overall, right now, you've got no reason, looking at this roster, looking at the staff, to not be hopeful that they're going to put together a product worth us watching this year. Listen, we've set out the expectations. It's up for players on that team and the coaching staff to reach those expectations. This is a playoff team on paper. Now we need to see that playoff team hit the field. And I think we will in due time. Listen, I might have been overzealous and I may have overestimated how quickly this offense will turn it on. But even still, I'm not ready to eat crow yet, or I'm not ready to put my foot in my mouth yet. Because again, there's no pads on. We're not seeing Terran Armstead isn't even on the field yet. So let's wait till training camp starts. And let's see when we start doing these joint practices and when we start doing these preseason games, let's see what we got on our hands and let's go from there. All right. So we got a defense that's been intact for 3 years. That is, defense is supposed to be ahead of the offense early on, but we're talking about light years ahead, okay? But still, I need to see some results from our offense. I'm not going to ride the defense should be ahead of them. I'm not going to ride that excuse all offseason. We're going to need to see results in the offseason still. But let's be patient. Let's play by ear. Let's let it play out. Time will tell, and we will see. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I appreciate each and every one of you for rolling through. I love all y'all. I hope each and every one of you have a fantastic evening. Guys, until next time, you already know what time it is, baby. Fins up all day, every day, baby. I'll see all of y'all on the next one. Peace.